February 26th, 1930. The biting winter air hangs heavy over the Bronx, thick with the smell of coal smoke and exhaust. On Sheridan Avenue, near East 156th Street, the world is a symphony of gray. Gray slush, gray sky, gray concrete. A woman hurries past, pulling her shawl tight, her head bowed against the wind, oblivious to the man leaving his apartment building. His name is Gaetano Reyna, a man of stature, the boss of a powerful crew that runs the ice distribution rackets out of the Bronx. He is a man who believes he is safe in his own territory. He is wrong. From the shadows of a nearby alley, two figures watch. One is a young man, not yet 33 years old, with sharp, intelligent eyes that miss nothing. His name is Gaetano Lucchese, but everyone calls him Tommy. He is small in stature, with a quiet demeanor that belies the calculating mind within. He does not hold the weapon, a 12-gauge shotgun, but his presence is an endorsement, a seal of approval on the violence about to unfold. He is the protégé of Tommy Galliano, Reyna's own top lieutenant, and tonight they are rewriting the future. Reyna pauses on the sidewalk, turning up the collar of his thick wool coat. He is thinking of dinner, of the warmth of his home, of the respect he commands. He does not see the dark sedan that has been circling the block for the last hour. He does not notice its slow, deliberate approach. The back door swings open and the cold metal of the shotgun barrel catches the dim streetlight. The blast rips through the quiet evening, a thunderous roar that echoes off the brick tenements. It tears through Reyna's coat, through his chest, a devastating spray of lead and force. He is thrown backward against the iron railing of his own building, his eyes wide with a final, shocked understanding. A second figure, a young Vito Genovese, steps from the car and delivers the final punctuation with a pistol. But the real work was done by the shotgun. Gaetano Reyna, the Ice King of the Bronx, is dead before his body slumps to the frozen ground. As the sedan speeds away, its tires spitting slush, Tommy Lucchese melts back into the shadows. He feels no remorse, only a cold, professional satisfaction. This was not a murder of passion. It was a business transaction. Reyna had been secretly aligning with Salvatore Maranzano, the old world challenger from Castellammare del Golfo, Sicily, while publicly professing loyalty to the undisputed boss of bosses, Joe the Boss Masseria. It was a fatal miscalculation. Lucchese and Galliano saw the betrayal and reported it directly to Masseria. In their world, loyalty is currency, and disloyalty is a debt paid in blood. Masseria, in his gratitude, sanctioned the hit and handed Reyna's entire operation, his rackets, his men, his territory, to the man who had been his second in command, Tommy Galliano. And at Galliano's side stood his most trusted subordinate, Tommy Lucchese. This is the opening salvo of what newspapers will call the Castellammarese War, a brutal, bloody conflict that will tear the New York underworld apart for the next year. It is a war between two factions, Masseria's old guard, heavy-handed, and rooted in the traditions of Naples and southern Italy, and Maranzano's insurgents, the ambitious Sicilians eager for power. For the next 13 months, the streets of New York become a killing ground. Car bombs, back alley assassinations, and machine gun ambushes are daily occurrences. Men die over card games during dinner in their own homes. Throughout the chaos, Lucchese remains a picture of calm efficiency. He is not a frontline soldier, he is a strategist. While other men are pulling triggers, he is pulling strings. He solidifies Galliano's control over the former Reyna crew, ensuring a smooth transition of power. He studies the shifting alliances, noting who is weak, who is ambitious, who can be trusted, and who must be eliminated. He watches as men like Charles Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, and Benjamin Bugsy Siegel grow tired of the old-timers and their endless, costly wars. They are the Young Turks, a new generation that sees crime not as a matter of honor or Sicilian tradition, but as an American business. Lucchese, born in Palermo but raised in the tenements of East Harlem's Italian ghetto on East 109th Street, understands this perspective perfectly. He sees the future, and he realizes the future does not include Joe Masseria. April 15th, 1931. The sun is surprisingly warm for a spring day in Coney Island, glinting off the faded paint of the Thunderbolt roller coaster. Inside the Nuova Villa Tamaro restaurant, the air hangs thick with the aroma of simmering marinara sauce, garlic, and cheap red wine. Joe, the boss. Masseria sits at a table near the back, his bulk straining the buttons of his vest. He is laughing, a deep, guttural sound as he scoops another forkful of spaghetti into his mouth. Across from him, his most trusted lieutenant, Lucky Luciano, smiles, his eyes betraying nothing. For months, Lucchese, Luciano, Lansky, and the other young Turks have planned this. The Castellamarese War has bled them all, in men and in profits. It is bad for business. They decided long ago that the only way to end it was to remove one of the kings from the board. Masseria, with his greedy, short-sighted ways, was the logical choice. Luciano, the ultimate insider, was the instrument. The meal is long. Masseria eats and drinks with the appetite of a man who believes he has won. He is oblivious. After the plates are cleared, Luciano suggests a game of cards. They play scopa, the cards slapping rhythmically on the tablecloth. The afternoon wears on. Finally, Luciano glances at his watch. He pushes his chair back. "I gotta take a leak," he says, his voice casual. He walks toward the back, past the kitchen, and disappears into the men's room. This is the signal. The front door of the restaurant swings open. 4 men enter, their faces set like stone. They are a multi-ethnic coalition of the new underworld. Vito Genovese and Joe Adonis, who are Italian, Albert Anastasia, the future Lord High Executioner of Murder, Incorporated, and Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, the impeccably dressed Jewish gunman. They move, with a terrifying purpose. Masseria looks up from his cards, his mouth half open in a confused scowl. The scowl turns to shock, then to terror. The room erupts in a deafening cacophony of gunfire. Pistols bark, spitting flame and lead. Wood splinters from the wall behind Masseria. The window shatters. His massive body jerks and convulses as 22 slugs tear into him, turning his fine suit into a ragged, bloody mess. He slumps forward, his face landing in the scattered playing cards on the table. In his hand, he still clutches the ace of spades. By the time police arrive, alerted by a panicked kitchen worker, the shooters are gone. Luciano is calmly washing his hands in the washroom. He claims he heard nothing. With Masseria's death, the war is over. Salvatore Maranzano is the victor, the undisputed new power. He calls a meeting of 500 gangsters at a large banquet hall in the Bronx to declare himself the capo di tutti capi, the boss of all bosses. He lectures them on loyalty and the Roman traditions of honor, a speech that feels ancient and out of place to men like Lucchese. Maranzano then reorganizes the New York rackets, officially establishing the 5 families: the Luciano family, the Profaci family, the Bonanno family, the Mangano family, and, crucially, the Galliano family. As a reward for their loyalty and pivotal role in the war, Tommy Galliano is named boss of the old Reina crew, and Tommy Lucchese is officially designated as his underboss. At 34 years old, Lucchese has ascended to the second highest position in a major crime family. He has power, respect, and a vast network of earners under his command. But he watches Maranzano on that stage, with his pompous speeches and his demand that everyone kiss his ring, and he feels a familiar unease. Maranzano has replaced one tyrant with another. He is Sicilian, but his thinking is rooted in the past. He is suspicious of the non-Sicilian associates like Lansky and Siegel. He believes in absolute dictatorial rule. Within months, Lucchese's fears are confirmed. Word comes down through Meyer Lansky's whisper-thin network of informants. Maranzano has marked Luciano and Genovese for death. He sees them, rightly, as the only real threat to his throne. He hires Vincent Mad Dog Cole, a rogue Irish hitman, to carry out the executions. For Luciano and his allies, the choice is simple. They did not just fight a year-long war to trade one boss for another. They fought it to create a new way of doing business, an American way. Maranzano, the self-proclaimed emperor, has to go, and he has to go quickly. September 10th, 1931. The late summer heat presses down on Manhattan, making the city asphalt soft and sticky. Inside the New York Central Building at 230 Park Avenue, Salvatore Maranzano is comfortable in his 9th-floor office, a sprawling suite he uses for his legitimate business front, the Eagle Building Corporation. He feels secure here, high above the city streets. insulated by layers of bodyguards and the weight of his own authority. He is expecting Colonel Vincent Higgins, a notorious Irish gunman, a meeting he believes will finalize the contracts on Luciano and Genovese. He is confident, arrogant, the very picture of a man on top of the world. He does not know that Lucky Luciano got to Higgins first. He does not know that Luciano's intricate plan is already in motion. The phone on his desk rings. It is his man at the door, informing him that 4 men have arrived. They claim to be Internal Revenue Service agents here to check the company books. Maranzano, a man who fears the government's ledgers far less than a rival's bullet, waves them in. The 4 men who step out of the elevator are not taxmen. They are Jewish assassins, handpicked by Meyer Lansky and Bugsy Siegel for their anonymity. Their faces would be unknown to Maranzano's Sicilian bodyguards. Samuel Red Levine leads the way, a man as cool and efficient as an adding machine. They are dressed in suits, carrying briefcases, their expressions impassive. They show their fake badges to Maranzano's guards, who, flustered and uncertain, step aside. The assassins stride into the inner office and close the door behind them. Maranzano looks up from his desk, a flash of irritation crossing his face at the interruption. Before he can speak, the killers are on him. They do not bother with pleasantries. They draw long, wicked-looking knives. Maranzano, for all his bluster, is not a street fighter. He is stunned, disbelieving. The first knife plunges into his chest. He screams a high, thin sound of shock and pain. He tries to fight back, to reach for the pistol he keeps in his desk drawer, but they are too many, too fast. They stab him again and again, a flurry of brutal, practiced motions. As he slumps over his desk, bleeding profusely, one of the assassins pulls a small-caliber pistol and fires several shots into his head. The sound is muffled by the thick office walls. They have done their work with chilling precision. They turn and walk calmly back to the reception area. Maranzano's bodyguards, hearing the commotion, now rush toward the office. The assassins flash their badges again. "Police business," one of them says, his voice flat. They brush past the confused guards, walk to the elevator, and disappear back into the city. Salvatore Maranzano, the boss of all bosses for a mere 5 months, is dead. This single decisive act changes everything. With both old world leaders gone, Luciano is free to implement his vision. He calls a meeting in Chicago, a neutral territory hosted by Al Capone. There, alongside the bosses of the 5 families of New York, including Tommy Galliano with Lucchese at his side, and the heads of the other major crime syndicates from across the country, he proposes a revolutionary idea. There will be no more boss of all bosses. No single man will hold absolute power. Instead, they will form a board of directors, a corporate-style governing body, to oversee all organized crime in America. They will call it the Commission. The Commission will mediate disputes, approve new members, sanction hits, and divide territories. It is a system designed to prevent the kind of costly, bloody wars that just ended. It is a system built for profit, not for pride. Galliano and Lucchese are founding members, their family's seat at the table secured. For Tommy Lucchese, this is the culmination of everything he has been working towards. He is no longer just a gangster. He is an executive. He sees the brilliance of Luciano's structure, the way it transforms a chaotic collection of street gangs into a national enterprise. While Luciano becomes the public face of this new order, Lucchese operates in his preferred domain, the shadows. He solidifies his power base within the Galliano family, focusing not on the high-profile rackets like gambling and bootlegging, but on something far more lucrative and insidious, the garment district. He understands that control of labor unions is the key to controlling an entire industry. He begins to move in, using his quiet influence and the ever-present threat of violence. He places his men in key positions within the International Ladies Garment Workers Union and the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America. Soon, not a single dress, not a single coat can be cut, sewn, or shipped in New York City without his organization getting a piece of the action. He sets up trucking companies that have a monopoly on distribution. He creates a system of protection, forcing factory owners to pay him to avoid strikes, vandalism, or worse. To the outside world, he is simply Tommy Brown, a legitimate clothing manufacturer. He wears tailored suits, speaks softly, and cultivates relationships with politicians and businessmen. His handshake is becoming more powerful than a gun. The 1940s dawn, and while the world outside is consumed by a global war, Tommy Lucchese is building an empire in the heart of New York City. The war effort creates an unprecedented demand for uniforms and textiles, and the garment district becomes a goldmine. Lucchese's control is absolute. He is no longer just an underboss. He is a silent partner in hundreds of businesses, a puppet master pulling the strings of an entire sector of the American economy. He and Tommy Galliano run their family with an almost corporate efficiency, a stark contrast to the volatile reigns of bosses like Vito Genovese or the public notoriety of Albert Anastasia. The Galliano family is known for its discipline, its low profile, and its immense steady profits. Lucchese perfects his public persona. He lives in a modest home on a quiet tree-lined street in Lido Beach, Long Island. He is a devoted family man, married to his wife Palma, and a doting father to his 2 children. He has no criminal record to speak of, a minor arrest from his teenage years as a window fitter's apprentice long forgotten. He contributes to charities, befriends local politicians, and is a respected member of his community. When the FBI begins taking an interest in organized crime figures, they find Lucchese a frustratingly elusive target. He avoids the flashy nightclubs and garish displays of wealth favored by his peers. He does not use the telephone for business. Conversations happen face-to-face, often during a quiet stroll through a park or in the back of a trusted associate's car. He is a ghost in the machine he so expertly built. His influence extends far beyond dresses and coats. He cultivates deep ties with officials in the Teamsters Union, particularly with a rising star from Detroit named Jimmy Hoffa. Lucchese sees the potential in controlling the arteries of American commerce, the trucks that move goods from coast to coast. He and other commission members provide Hoffa with the muscle he needs to consolidate his power, and in return, Hoffa gives them access to the union's vast pension funds, a seemingly bottomless well of cash for financing their various schemes, from Las Vegas casinos to real estate ventures. In 1951, after more than 20 years as head of the family, Tommy Galliano dies of natural causes, a rare and peaceful end for a man of his stature. The transition of power is seamless, a testament to the stability he and Lucchese had built. There is no war, no bloodshed, no internal strife. By unanimous consent of the commission, the 54-year-old Gaetano Tommy Lucchese is named the new boss. The family is officially renamed the Lucchese crime family. As boss, Lucchese continues his policy of quiet dominance. He refines his operations, making them even more integrated with the legitimate economy. He buys into poultry farms, food processing plants, and construction companies. He establishes a virtual monopoly over the air freight industry at Idlewild Airport, later renamed John F. Kennedy International Airport, controlling the unions for cargo handlers, truckers, and airport workers. Millions of dollars in goods simply vanish from the tarmac each year, a mob tax that businesses are forced to absorb. Lucchese is a master of delegation. He trusts his key capos, men like Johnny Dio Dioguardi, a labor racketeering genius, and Carmine Mr. Gribbs Tramunti, to run the day-to-day operations. His own role is that of a chairman of the board. He resolves disputes with a calm, almost professorial air. Men come to him with their problems, and he dispenses solutions that are both fair and final. He is known for his wisdom and his ability to see all sides of an issue. But beneath the genteel exterior, the capacity for swift and brutal violence remains. When the crusading journalist Victor Riesel begins writing exposés on Johnny Dio's union rackets, a Lucchese associate throws a vial of acid in Riesel's face on a darkened street corner, permanently blinding him. The message is clear and terrifying. There are lines you do not cross. Lucchese is never officially connected to the crime, but in the underworld everyone knows who sanctioned it. He's a man who prefers a handshake, but he will not hesitate to use a fist, or worse, to protect his interests. 1960. The air is electric with political change. John F. Kennedy, the handsome and charismatic senator from Massachusetts, is locked in a tight presidential race against Richard Nixon. The election is predicted to be one of the closest in American history, and every vote, every state, every influential bloc matters. Joseph P. Kennedy, the family patriarch, a man who understands the tangled webs of power in both legitimate and illegitimate worlds, reaches out through intermediaries. He needs help delivering the crucial Union vote in states like Illinois, a territory controlled by the formidable Chicago outfit, led by Sam Momo Giancana. The request filters through the national network of the Commission. In New York, Tommy Lucchese is consulted. He, along with Giancana and other key bosses, sees a potential opportunity. Having a friend in the White House, or at least a man indebted to them, could be invaluable. The mob had suffered under the intense scrutiny of the Kefauver Committee hearings in the early 1950s, and the prospect of an attorney general like Robert F. Kennedy, who had made his name prosecuting Teamsters boss Jimmy Hoffa, is a chilling one. They believe that if they help the son, the father will ensure the son's administration looks the other way. Lucchese and Giancana put the word out. They lean on their contacts in the unions. In Chicago, Mayor Richard J. Daley's political machine works in concert with the outfit's muscle to ensure an overwhelming turnout for Kennedy. Ballot boxes are stuffed, votes are found, and Kennedy wins Illinois by a razor-thin margin of less than 9,000 votes, a victory that proves decisive in securing the presidency. The mob has delivered. Now, they expect to be repaid. Their optimism is catastrophically misplaced. President Kennedy, once in office, appoints his younger brother, Robert, as Attorney General. And Robert F. Kennedy unleashes the full power of the Department of Justice on the very men who helped put his brother in office. He has a personal vendetta against organized crime, fueled by his long-running battle with Jimmy Hoffa. The number of federal indictments against mob figures skyrockets. Wiretaps, informants, and relentless surveillance become the new reality. For Tommy Lucchese, this is a profound betrayal. He, a man who has built his entire career on the principles of loyalty and reciprocity, finds himself targeted by an administration he helped create. He feels the pressure mount. Federal agents begin tailing him, documenting his every move. They watch his modest Long Island home. They follow him to his Garment District businesses. They try to piece together the threads of his vast, invisible empire. Lucchese's response is to retreat even further into the shadows. He becomes more cautious than ever. He ceases all direct involvement in criminal activities, communicating his orders through a series of buffers and cutouts. His underboss, Stefano Stevie LaSalle, and his consigliere, Vincenzo Vinny Rao, handle the family's affairs. But the government's assault is relentless. In 1962, Robert Kennedy's prosecutors finally managed to indict Lucchese, not for murder or racketeering, but for perjury. They question him about a trip to Florida, believing he met with other mob bosses, and he denies it under oath. It is a weak case, but it is a start. The betrayal by the Kennedys, combined with the government's intense pressure, forces the commission into an unprecedented and desperate alliance. The CIA, in its obsessive quest to overthrow Fidel Castro's communist regime in Cuba, approaches the mob with a proposition. They want to hire mafia assassins to kill Castro. Men like Sam Giancana and Santo Trafficante Jr., the boss of Florida, who lost their lucrative Havana casino rackets when Castro came to power, are eager participants. Lucchese, always the pragmatist, sees the potential leverage. If they cooperate with one arm of the government, perhaps another arm will back off. It is a dangerous game, playing spycraft with the federal government, a world of smoke and mirrors far removed from the brutal certainties of the street. But these are desperate times. The gentleman gangster, the quiet don who had mastered the art of staying invisible, is now caught in the blinding glare of a federal spotlight, forced to navigate the treacherous currents of national politics and international espionage. September 27, 1963. The caucus room of the Senate office building is a cavern of marble and polished wood, packed with reporters, photographers, and government officials. The air is thick with anticipation, the silence punctuated by the rhythmic clicking of camera shutters. At a long table before the Senate Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations, a man named Joseph Valachi sits, his face a mask of nervous gravity. He is a 59-year-old low-level soldier in the Genovese crime family, a man whose name was unknown to the public just weeks before. Today, he's about to become the most famous gangster in America. For Tommy Lucchese, watching the news reports from the quiet of his Long Island home, this is a nightmare realized. This is the ultimate betrayal. a violation of the sacred code of omertà, the oath of silence that is the bedrock of their entire society. Valice is the first ever member of the Italian-American Mafia to publicly acknowledge its existence and break his blood oath. He is not just an informant, he is a teacher, giving the government and the American public a detailed insider's lesson on the structure, rituals, and history of the secret organization he calls La Cosa Nostra. Valachi speaks in a gravelly, matter-of-fact tone, describing the 5 families of New York, naming the bosses: Carlo Gambino, Joseph Bonanno, Joseph Profaci, Vito Genovese, and of course, Tommy Lucchese. He lays out the hierarchy from the boss down to the soldiers. He describes the induction ceremony, the pricking of the finger, the burning of the saint's card, the solemn oath of silence. An oath he is now shattering before a national television audience. The fallout is immediate and catastrophic. The FBI, under the direction of J. Edgar Hoover, who had for decades publicly denied the existence of a national crime syndicate, is forced to change its entire strategy. The name Lucchese, once whispered only in the deepest circles of the underworld and law enforcement, is now front-page news. His carefully constructed facade of a respectable businessman is irrevocably cracked. The public now knows him as the head of a powerful and violent criminal enterprise. The pressure on Lucchese intensifies tenfold. He is already battling the perjury charges and the relentless surveillance, but the Valachi testimony paints a giant target on his back. He knows the government will now pour unlimited resources into taking him down. He is forced to change his routines, to become even more paranoid. Meetings are no longer quiet strolls in the park. They are furtive encounters in constantly changing locations, with layers of security. He trusts no one outside his most intimate circle. Adding to the turmoil, the delicate balance of power on the commission begins to crumble. Joseph Joe Bananas Bonanno, a prideful and ambitious boss, sees the chaos as an opportunity. He conspires with Joseph Magliocco, the new head of the Profaci family, to assassinate their chief rivals on the commission, Carlo Gambino and Tommy Lucchese. It is a brazen power grab, a throwback to the bloody wars of the 1930s. But Lucchese, with his deep and reliable network of informants, gets word of the plot. One of Magliocco's top capos, Joseph Colombo, realizes the plan is suicidal and defects, revealing the entire conspiracy to Gambino and Lucchese. The commission summons Bonanno and Magliocco to answer for their treachery. Magliocco, old and ill, confesses immediately and is forced into a quiet retirement, dying of a heart attack shortly after. Bonanno, defiant, refuses to appear. He is declared an enemy of the commission, and a contract is placed on his life. This ignites a bloody internal conflict within the Bonanno family, a schism known as the Banana War, which will rage for years. Lucchese and Gambino, their alliance now forged in the crucible of this shared threat, emerge as the 2 most powerful and respected bosses in the country. They have weathered the storm, but the landscape has been forever altered. The old ways of doing business, the quiet arrangements and unspoken agreements, are gone. They are living in a new era of federal wiretaps, RICO statutes, and public exposure. For Tommy Lucchese, now in his mid-60s and in failing health, the final chapter of his long reign is beginning to write itself. 1967. The salt-laced air of Lido Beach drifts through the open bedroom window of a pleasant, unassuming house on Causeway Road. Inside, Gaetano Lucchese lies in a hospital bed, the crisp white sheets a stark contrast to his sallow skin. The once sharp eyes that could size up a man's worth or weakness in a single glance are now clouded with pain. A brain tumor, diagnosed years earlier, is finally winning its slow, inexorable war. At 69 years old, the man known as Tommy Brown, the man who controlled a vast criminal empire with a quiet word and an iron will, is reduced to a frail invalid, a prisoner in his own failing body. Outside, across the street, 2 men sit in a nondescript Plymouth sedan. They are FBI agents, part of a round-the-clock surveillance team. They have been here for months, for years, watching, listening, meticulously documenting every visitor, every car that comes and goes. They have wiretaps and informants, mountains of intelligence detailing Lucchese's control over unions, airports, and the garment district. They have the Valachi testimony. They have everything they need, except the man himself. Lucchese has become the government's ultimate frustration. His lawyers, citing his rapidly deteriorating health, have successfully postponed his perjury trial indefinitely. Doctors confirm he is too ill to stand trial, too weak to be questioned. The formidable crime boss has found his final unassailable defense in his own mortality. He is untouchable, not because of power or influence, but because he is dying. Yet, even from his sickbed, he is still the boss. His mind, though fogged by illness, remains the family's strategic center. His most trusted lieutenants, Carmine Tramunti and Stefano Lassalle, visit him regularly. They sit by his bedside, speaking in low, respectful tones, updating him on business and seeking his counsel on disputes. Lucchese responds with a faint gesture, a whispered phrase, a nod. It is all that is needed. His authority is absolute, an invisible force that permeates every corner of his organization. He has built a machine that can run without his physical presence, but it still requires the ghost of his intellect to guide it. He outlives many of his rivals and accusers. Robert F. Kennedy, his great antagonist, is now a senator from New York, his crusade as Attorney General a memory. Vito Genovese, the man who helped him kill Joe Masseria 36 years earlier, is dying in a federal prison in Atlanta. The world Lucchese shaped is changing, but he has endured. He survived the Castellamarese War, the formation of the Commission, the betrayal of the Kennedys, and the devastating revelations of Joseph Valachi. On July 13th, 1967, with his wife Palma and his children by his side, Tommy Lucchese dies. There is no gunfire, no back alley ambush, no car bomb. His end comes not at the hands of a rival or a federal agent, but from the quiet, cellular treason of a brain tumor. The gentleman gangster, the quiet don of East Harlem, the man who turned violence into a corporate asset, dies peacefully in his own bed. His funeral is a study in contrasts. A public Catholic Mass is held at the Church of the Incarnation in Queens, attended by hundreds of friends, family, and business associates. Law enforcement officers stand across the street, cameras with telephoto lenses clicking away, documenting the faces of the underworld who have come to pay their respects to a king. He is buried in Calvary Cemetery in Queens, under a simple headstone bearing his name. Tommy Lucchese left behind a legacy that redefined the American mafia. He was the prototype of the modern boss, low-key, business-savvy, and politically connected. He understood that true power was not in public notoriety, but in silent, institutional control. He built an empire that was so deeply woven into the fabric of the legitimate economy that it was nearly impossible to untangle. His handshake was indeed worth more than a gun, because the handshake represented a system, an organization that made the gun an instrument of last, not first resort. The Lucchese crime family would continue, but the quiet, calculating genius who gave it his name, the man who ruled for nearly 2 decades from the shadows, was gone.